All right, today we're going to talk about how to respond to an ex who you want back. And I thought probably the best way to attack this particular video is to actually look at real life situations. So if you don't know, we actually have a group on Facebook that has about 5,800 members on it. All of these people are going through breakups. They've all bought into our program, our coaching program, and they're basically trying to figure out what they can do to get their exes back or even move on from their exes, but most of them want their exes back. So what's interesting though is a lot of times we learn a lot from these individuals based on what they post. So what I did for this video was I went through and looked at some of the more difficult things that your ex texts you, and what we're going to do is take those real life things that exes have said and give you a response so that you understand how you can respond if your ex texts you about this certain thing. So let's just hop right into it. All right, so let's go to the lowest hanging fruit first. What do you do if your ex texts you related to something about missing you? So what I think a lot of people misunderstand is that generally speaking, exes don't say, "I miss you." Sometimes they do, but generally it sounds a little bit more like this. Do you ever think about us? How do you respond to that? So there's a lot going on here. Usually an ex will ask you this: do you ever think about us? Usually if things are going pretty well between the two of you. So rapport has been built, you may have seen them in person a couple of times and they text you, "Do you ever think about us?" How do you respond to that? Well, the first thing I think you need to understand is an ex asking this question almost always already knows your answer. Of course you're thinking about them, but they need that extra validation to prop up their ego. So what you do is you give them a little bit of the validation. "I do, but it depends on the day." Haha. So what this does is it does two things. You say, "I do think about you, but it depends on the day," almost insinuating, but I don't really think about you that much, and it's sort of like dependent on how I'm feeling. You also make it seem like you're not really thinking about them that much. It's just kind of an honest answer. I will say though, if your ex texts you during the no contact rule, something related to "I miss you" or "Do you ever think about us?" usually you're only going to want to respond this particular way if you are literally having very good communication with your ex. So what do you do if your ex texts you something related to them being bored? Usually you're not going to see this with them saying, "Hi, I'm bored." It's going to usually be something like, "Hi, how are you?" Or "Hi," or "What's up?" This is kind of the traditional, "I don't really know what I want to talk about, but I want to talk to you." So there's really two ways that you can handle this. The first thing is, instead of saying, let's assume your ex says, "Hey, how are you?" Instead of saying, "Oh, I'm doing fine," you say, "Excellent enough." Or you could try to be a little comical about it. "Why? What have you heard?" These are kind of great ways to extend the conversation. And I do want to again reiterate that we're almost always assuming if you're in a position where you have to respond to an ex, you are out of the no contact rule. So this only applies if you're not in the midst of no contact. What do you do if your ex texts you something related to them checking up on you? This is maybe the most basic thing that they're going to do. Usually this is insinuating you've already had a conversation and they're asking a question about it. So the one I found in the Facebook group was, "Hey, how did tryouts go?" So our client clearly had something related to tryouts going on. Her ex was just sort of trying to start a conversation related to that. And the best thing you can do in this situation is you don't need to do anything fancy. Just say, "Oh, they went really well. Thanks for asking." Pretty simple. Not anything to sort of build out here. I think the reason why is because a lot of times if they're asking a question about you, like, "Hey, how did your tryouts go?" they're already interested in having a conversation with you, so you just need to kind of match their behavior and let the conversation unfold. What do you do if your ex texts you when they're worried about you? This one requires a little bit of an explanation. So we actually had someone in our private Facebook support group who lost her dog. And rather than asking her ex, "Hey, could you help me?" she actually made a post on social media about it, just letting everyone know, "I've lost my dog, I would love help," or "If you've seen the dog, let me know." And I think it was more of a venting thing than anything else. The ex actually saw this on social media and reached out to her trying to check up on her. I think he said something like, "Are you okay?" A simple, "Are you okay? How are you? How can I help you?" Things like that. In this particular circumstance, the best thing she should have done, and I think she did do this, was, Hi, I'm doing okay, but my dog is missing, and insert the dog's name clearly. The reason why is because he never specifically stated that this is why he was reaching out. It was almost implied, but one thing that you can do to kind of illustrate that you're not okay and that you kind of want to tap into their hero complex is to reiterate sort of like, I'm doing okay, but I lost my dog, which is kind of this weird paradox, but anything to tap into their hero complex kind of works out well. Now it's going to get interesting. What do you do if your ex texts you to reassert your current status together? So this is actually one of the more difficult ones to handle. This is usually if things seem to be developing between the two of you, but your ex kind of texts you to friend zone you. So it's kind of like, hey, we're just friends, right? So more specifically, their text is going to look exactly like this. We're where we're supposed to be, right? So the ultimate insinuation here is that he's happy with the breakup, or your ex is happy with the way things currently are. So how do you handle this? Well, the first thing you want to do is understand the dynamics of a paradigm shift. Your ex has a certain assumption about you when they text you, we're where we're supposed to be. Things worked out for the best. So the assumption there is, look, I'm friend zoning you. You're getting kind of false ideas about where this is going. The first thing you should do is understand you need to shift that mindset within your ex. And the best way you can do that is sort of like, hey, hold the brakes here. I thought we were already friends. I don't know about you, but that's all we are. So it's kind of a weird way of holding a mirror up and friend zoning your ex in return. What about an ex who texts you for a booty call? I don't really think I need to illustrate this by explaining what a booty call is. They're texting you for things other than your friendship, I guess. Here's what you need to do. Anytime your ex ventures into that territory, you need to text them back or respond to them in this following way. Oh, I only do that with people that I'm actually in a relationship with. Wink face. So there's a couple of dynamics to look at here. Number one is you're rejecting them. You're rejecting them in kind of a nice way, but you're also insinuating things like that can happen in the future if sort of he commits or she commits. And you do that with just the simple wink face emoji. What do you do if your ex texts you rejecting you? Usually you'll see this type of text message occur when you're out of the no contact rule and you're first trying to reassert a conversation or rebuild the dynamics between the two of you. And a lot of times it'll text you simply by saying, I need space. So the best way you can respond to that is not by responding at all, but simply jumping into another no contact rule. Most likely they are very avoidant by nature, and the smartest thing you can do with avoidance is actually to give them a little bit of space, even if it's really hard. What do you do if your ex texts you about finances during the no contact rule? You owe me money. I expect it to be paid by the end of the week. Well, this is kind of a lot like exchanging items, in my opinion. If you owe your ex money, you are supposed to communicate with them during no contact rule only about that. So it's kind of limited no contact based on the nature. So the goal here is just to pay them back and jump back into no contact. That's it. Pretty simple. What do you do if they text you asking you out on a date? Hey, we should get dinner sometime next week. I'm free Wednesday and Thursday. So there's a couple of things that you need to understand here. We do have this concept called the value ladder. So depending on when they're asking you, this is dependent on how you respond. Usually if you're really, really far into rebuilding attraction with them through text, or you've gone on a few dates with them already and they're just simply asking you on another date, just jump on the date and don't play any games. But if you're right out of no contact, things seem to be going really well, but you haven't had a chance to build value up the value ladder, I like to tell people to have a hybrid approach. I don't think you should deny the date outright, but what you should do is try to reschedule the date at a later time. So usually you say, oh, that sounds so great, but I'm not free those days. How about such and such date? That's the goal. Right? So what this does is a couple of things. The first thing is it allows you to see how badly your ex actually wants to see you. If they do want to see you, they're going to jump through those hoops. Number two is you kind of allow yourself or buy yourself a little bit more time to build up that attraction. What do you do if they text you talking about their new girlfriend or boyfriend? So a lot of times that's going to be kind of a painful text to receive, but it's going to look like this. I just got these flowers for... insert the other woman's name or the other man's name. What do you think? So This is my favorite response bar none. That's why I saved it until last. What you're simply gonna do is send them the laughing/crying face, and that's it. I used to think like sending an ex like, hey, I'm not the person you want to ask about that would be the right way to approach it, but it's actually way better if you just send them an emoji of the laughing, crying face. Almost like they're left wondering, what does that mean? And you want them thinking a lot more about you than they do about the other person, and that's the correct way to handle it. Because what does that mean? Does it mean you're angry at them? Does it mean you are laughing at them? Does it mean the flowers are bad? Does it mean like, why are you asking me this? There's so many ways, and they may even try to follow up with you, but I think the best way after that is just not to respond at all or simply change the subject. That's a lot more intriguing after all. So that's gonna do it for this particular video on our YouTube channel. Now there's a lot more sort of questions and responses that I could have come up with, but we don't have enough time. So here's my challenge for you. In the comments below, if I missed anything out or if there's some type of response that you're wondering about how you should respond to your ex in this situation or that situation that we didn't cover in this video, let me know in the comments below. Other than that, if you haven't already, make sure you take our Ex Recovery Chances quiz. It's a simple free 2-minute quiz designed to tell you what kind of chance you have of getting your ex back. Now all you have to do if you want to take this quiz, simply look in the description link below and click the blue link you see there. Also, if you haven't liked, commented, or subscribed to the YouTube channel, please do so. It really does make a difference. I'll see you next time.